Hi there, and welcome to Coffee with Phil, where our goal is to help you live a life of purpose on purpose. Walking with God sounds easy, but how many of you know it never follows the script you prepared? In this podcast, Phil shares stories from his personal journey in the hopes that his experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly, will help you as you walk with God on your own journey. Grab your coffee and enjoy this practical and personal episode with your podcast host, Phil Strong.
Well, hi, and welcome. G'day. It's great to be with you. Feeling energized because I just had a super fruit tea. And if you want to find the reason why I've been having this super fruit tea this afternoon in my back-to-back recording sessions, you're going to need to listen to episode 93. The beginning of episode 93, I unpack for you the ridiculous kind of day that I've been having today, and what would cause me, the coffee geek, the snob that only drinks good coffee, to come on a podcast drinking my superfruit. But anyway, that's for you to go and look for. Just really interested to see how life's tracking at the moment, and I would say this as an old person. You do get more and more appreciation for hindsight because you've got more to look back on. So hindsight, by definition in my world, is basically looking backwards and seeing things from a different perspective in a way that allows you to make insightful observations. And so what that means is I can look back at life and go, is that why that happened? Or, oh my gosh, I did not see that at the time. And it's kind of the mindset I want us to go into this episode with. So I want to get into it today, and I want to talk to you about disruption. And this is Coffee with Phil, episode 94, and I've titled this one, The Fruit of Disruption. And we'll get that defined for you in a minute. But I suppose I'm setting this up on the back of the last conversation we had in episode 93. And I'd say this, isn't it good when life goes just perfect, the way we planned it, or the way that keeps us comfortable? And how many of you know, with a bit of hindsight, you realise that's actually not the best way for life to go, actually. That a journey of life is a journey with God. And go and grab the last episode, because the whole point of the last episode was to make room for God to move in your life. And often if you're perfectly planned or perfectly comfortable, you make no room for God. And so why would you want to do that? Well, maybe today we might have some motivation, because I want to tell you a few things that I've been journeying through, and how the fruit of disruption has actually become a positive thing. So that's the whole goal. But what I want to do right at the start here is I've just tapped in looking for a definition of disruption. So just in case you're on a different wavelength than me, let's get back on the same page. According to the Oxford Dictionary, a disruption is a disturbance or problems which interrupt an event, activity, or a process. And so it's a disarrangement, it's a rearrangement, it's an interference. It could also be defined, again, according to the definition here, of a radical change to an existing industry or market due to innovation. And I would say to you, the first definition often leads to the second definition. So what do I mean by that? The fruit of disruption, the fruit of a disturbance or a problem which interrupts your life can lead to, the fruit is what it leads to. It leads to a radical change in your world. And so what I'm suggesting to you is there can be a very positive fruit of disruption. And that's what I want to talk about. You see, here's my observation. Disruption, disturbance, problems which interrupt, that's often the way that God gets our attention so that we see what He has prepared, and we might normally miss what God has prepared because we've got our perfect plan or our perfect comfort. And so God causes the wind to blow. God causes storms to come. God causes events that unsettle us, not because he doesn't like us, but because he loves us so much as a loving father that he wants to discipline us, which means he wants to disciple us. God's not punishing you because your life is comfortable. He's bringing about change in you because he wants to make you more like Jesus. So disruption is often the way God gets our attention. And a beautiful example of this, you know me, I always like to point you to the Bible. Go and read the story of Joseph, which starts in Genesis 37. Joseph is the favored son of his father, I think the 11th born son. So he's not the eldest, he's not the strongest, but he's the favorite. And his father gives him a coat of many colors. But what you read in the story of Joseph, if you dare to, is you'll see Joseph and his colorful coat actually lead him on a more than colorful journey. And at the beginning, I don't want to spoil the story for you, but at the beginning, Joseph has these dreams, and God begins to download to Joseph the favor that's on his life, how he's going to be an influencer, how he's going to have his the high position above his brothers. Now, understand, in the culture of the day, if you're the firstborn, you get the double portion. If you're the 11th born, mate, you're getting scraps. You're like, there's no favor on you. You're gonna be the also ran. But this dream began to show Joseph what God was saying about the promise on his life to be the head, to be over top of the others. And the brothers hated him for it. And then more than that, he has this dream where the sun, moon, and the stars, they bow down to him in his colourful coat. And it's implied by the response that he's like, even rulers will bow before me. And his brothers think he's an absolute egg. As a result of that, they despise him and they plan to kill him. What's my point in saying this, though? Because I thought about this afternoon, and I'm thinking, that kind of prophetic dream, that kind of message that was interpreted as a message from God, because it was fulfilled. Oh no, I just spoiled the story for you. Read the story. It's full of drama. The prophecy must have given Joseph some kind of expectation. Like when God reveals that and you believe it to be a message from God and you're stirred to a place of faith so that you tell your family about it, you've got to have some kind of expectation, right? Like you've got to have anticipation, like God's going to do it. Like I've got promises in my life that I'm looking for. God said to me, I'm a God who replenishes and restores. I'm a God of restitution. I'm a God of justice. And all that has been stolen from you will be repaid. Well, what do you think I'm doing? I'm walking, looking and expecting for God to bring about the thing he's promised. So I've got expectation, right? So Joseph is living his life in his colourful coat with his colourful family, with a colourful promise, and then God disrupts his life. He goes on a colourful journey. And the brothers, they raise their hand against Joseph, and he goes from his promise straight into a pit. And God disrupts the process. God brings a disturbance, a problem which interrupts the process by which Joseph thought his life was going to follow. And in that, if you read the end of the story, come on, man, Genesis 50 verse 20, Joseph says, you thought these things were for harm, but the Lord meant them for good. Who of us knew that God would raise me as a deliverer for his people? Oh, well, I've totally told you the story now. But you should read it because it's really good. Genesis 37, go and find it and sit down and read it with a good cup of tea. So what I'm saying to you and what I'm saying to me is we've got to shift what's going on inside of us when things get disrupted. When things don't go the perfect plan or the perfect comfort, it gets disrupted, there's an accident, we get a horrible phone call, someone just died, I lost my job, I got a big bill, I can't do this, my job, my boss, whatever. Disruption happens. So look at this, like for instance, everybody can remember what it was like in COVID. The melodrama or the pandemic, whichever way you want to look at it, the lockdowns, the vax debate, the hate is going to hate. Social media just became a cesspool of idiots, so you just get off it, because why would you want to be there? But COVID was a disruption, right? We couldn't go to work, we couldn't go to school, we couldn't connect with our families. My dad was dying of cancer, and I wasn't allowed to travel because we were in lockdown, and all sorts of dramas. Like, that's a disruption, man. Like, it's disruption. But what that disruption actually forced us to do was to rethink life and what we were spending our energy on. Because, all of a sudden we weren't, if you live in a big city and you're commuting an hour each way to work, suddenly you realize you don't have to spend 2 hours commuting every day. And it opened up this whole new world of a hybrid kind of work pattern where we can work from home and work from the office, and we can use technology better. That disruption had fruit in it. And, I don't believe that everyone should work from home all of the time, but I certainly do understand that there's a benefit from shifting our expectations and looking for something in the midst of disruption to see what God's trying to show us, because God gets our attention in the disruption. So I'll give you an example, classic example for the church that I'm a part of. As leaders, elders, we sat around. We were struggling, man. I had learned how to do live stream. I'd learned how to do videos. I'd learned how to send out communication. But, we still had no context. We can't touch people. We can't meet together. And everyone was like angry about it, disappointed, hurt, struggling. Others were like, woohoo, this is awesome. I don't have to talk to anyone. I'm on permanent holiday. But as church leaders, we had to rethink. We had to shift the pattern that we'd established over years and think, how can we do this? Because we had constraints and restrictions, and I don't know if you remember, but there were group size limits and you had to segregate, and it was horrible. And we were like, man, we don't want to herd people like pigs, blue ones to the right and yellow ones to the left. I mean, that's not how we want to run things. So what came out of that as we prayerfully sought God in this disruption? We said there's got to be some fruit from it, and we found a different pattern for worship. And what that did is it took away the focus from performance in a big room with spectators sitting in a seat. It shifted us away from that, and now what's evolved 4 years later is a vibrant life as a community where each person is an engaged believer. Like, there's no passengers on a battleship. You can spectate for a season if you need to, but that's not a permanent place. You don't get to sit in the fourth row in the same seat every Sunday and just sit there and watch, because that's not what we believe life's about as a believer. So the disruption, although it was very uncomfortable and caused grief and pain and challenge, what's come out of it for us? Now don't hear me say everyone needs to do what I'm doing. I am not saying that. I'm just saying that for us, the disruption that we went through enabled us to see things differently that God had for us to see, and the choice was, do we want to move into what God is showing us? And I want to point to that in the second part of the podcast. I also just want to reflect on it personally, because COVID, we worked from home a lot. There was for the first lockdown, there was 3 of us in the house. The second lockdown, there was just for 2 of us. But you obviously got to shift your patterns. Kathy and I would get into the regular routine of going for an afternoon walk. We'd take the dog. We'd wave at people through their windows. We'd get some fresh air. We would have some conversations. And I remember, actually, one of those lockdown afternoons on a walk we had, we really pushed the envelope in a conversation we were having around the comfort that we're in, and how would we step out of our comfort to find some more exciting adventures in partnership with God. And as a result of that, the Lord led us on a faith adventure, which is helping to grow faith, albeit not so comfortable. So that was something that Kathy and I explored. But for me personally, it really made me, this lockdown, change in patterns, different work, different connection with people, it really made me sit back and address what I came to realize was an unsustainable way of working and living. So always being driven by the growth curve up to the right, strive, achieve, outcomes. People are a means for outcomes. Let's drive the team harder. Let's help them fulfill their mission. Let's make sure that they're satisfied and successful. But it just wasn't sustainable. And, I do love work. I love productivity. But I did so at the cost, and I have shared extensively on this podcast channel about my turning away from that and turning toward what Peter Scazzero calls a slowed down spirituality, and the early church fathers, as they teach us the simplicity of faith, the beautiful blessing of Sabbath that Jesus and others show us, and then Brother Lawrence, learning from Brother Lawrence, this monk in the middle of Paris in the 16th or 17th century, to practice the presence of God. That wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, even in this moment, right here, right now, when I'm talking to you, I can sense the presence of God. I can connect with the presence of God, and I'm confident that the presence is all around me right here, right now. I'm just just getting the goosebumps, because that never ever used to be my experience. I would separate work from worship. I would have my quiet time and deeply devoted to biblical study and reading, but then I would go off to work and forget about God for the next 40 hours. So learning to practice the presence means connecting with the God who is always with us. So the point I'm making, guys, is the disruption that we call COVID over a period of a couple of years really stirred things for us. But not everyone chose to look at it as an opportunity to see something that God was trying to highlight. And I do believe God uses disruptions to get our attention so we can see things that He has prepared for us, but we would normally miss them because of our perfect plan or our perfect comfort. So let's shift then, in the midst of disruption, when things happen, how many times do we react the wrong way when things don't go according to our plan? And, I'm thinking I've shared stories about, when I didn't get this promotion that I really wanted and how I reacted like a child. I'm thinking about the disappointment when God doesn't answer prayers the way we anticipate He will. I'm thinking about how I might react when someone chooses to walk a different path than the one that I'd hoped they would walk with me, and broken connections. I think about financial challenges or loss or hardship that me and I've helped others through in this current season. And how many times do we react the wrong way? And so what I've got here is just 3 simple suggestions, and I've called them a better way. And so before I get into that, just maybe, I don't know if you want to stop the podcast or you want to think through this with me out loud, but has there been disruptions in your life in recent times? Disruption, remember, is a disturbance or problem which interrupt an event, activity, or process. So something that upset you or upset the flow or stopped or killed something. Has there been a disruption? And then think about how you processed that. Think about how you reacted. Think about what was going on in you. And then I will now want to help you by sharing with you some of the things that I've been doing in the midst of my disruptions. And so this little section of this episode here is called The Better Way. Let's do things a better way. Number 1, ask God what the emotions in you are pointing to. So again, I have shared this numerous times on this podcast. Emotions are a gift from God, and they're a signpost that God uses to point us to something. So when something happens and you get disappointed or angry, it's an emotion. So then you would say, okay, God, I'm feeling really angry right now. This is an emotion you've given me that's a signpost that points to something. So God, what is this anger pointing to? What is this anger pointing to that you would like me to see more clearly? And just stop your mind from being so busy and allow yourself to connect with God so that He might speak to you. And you might realize that the anger is actually an adverse reaction because you still feel like you are entitled to something, or you might have an exposure inside of you of unmet needs that you're projecting in the wrong direction. It could be that God says, well, you're just selfish. That's why you're angry, because you're selfish. And well, if that's the case, then you want to deal with it. The point is, the better way is not just to react. Now, what I am not saying is don't have an emotion. Allow the emotion to come. Allow yourself to feel the emotion. This sounds a little bit new age, but actually what you want to do is to stop and go, what am I feeling right now? What's going in my body? What do I feel unsafe? Do I feel sad? Do I feel angry? Do I feel happy? And so emotions are helpful, but the point of the emotion is to connect with what God wants to show you. So a better way is to ask God what the emotion in you is pointing to and sit down and have a conversation with Him. The second thing that I want to share with you with regards to a better way is so you've got a disruption and you feel like you're reacting and so you're going to need to get yourself through that emotional part. Like, it's essential. If you avoid it or distract yourself from it, it will come back and bite you in the bum. So do not repress it, do not avoid it, and do not ignore it, but face it and work through it. It's a gift. It's a gift from God for you. The second thing you can do then is to ask God what gift of His presence He has for you in this disruption. So, for example, you're going through a disruption. A friend of mine rings me up and go, hey bro, how's it going? It was not good news. I just heard my dad died. How many of you know that's a disruption? And so there's emotion and there's a connection and something that's really going on that you have to embrace and support, in that case, supporting someone. But then, sitting down and saying, okay, God, what gift of your presence do you have for me in this disruption? And one of the easiest ways I've found to do that is to just to get rid of everything else that's going on around me and say, okay, God, would you show me a picture of how close you are to me right now? Where are you in this storm? Where are you in this grief? Where are you in this significant trauma? Can you show me how close you are to me? Because the gift of a revelation of God's presence is connection with God Himself. And so the other thing to do in that, and when I talk about a gift of God's presence, Kathy years ago started using this phrase, and it's a real sticker. So grab this one, and we call it the beautiful exchange. So as let's just say you're feeling really alone. Something's happened and you're feeling really alone, and so you lost your job, or your best friend moved out of town, and you're sitting there crying into your glass of Chardonnay, and you're like, you remember this, and you go, okay, God, what emotion? Well, you're sad, you're lonely, and so then this process here is about the beautiful exchange. So what Kathy and I teach people to do is to sit down and say, okay, God, well, I'd like to walk through a beautiful exchange with you right now. And this is based on the premise that God is a good father. This is what Jesus taught us. God is a good father who, if his son asks for bread, he does not give him a stone. So you got to understand that God is good, right? And so you say, okay, God, I would like to give you the loneliness I'm feeling right now. And just imagine it. It's cheesy, but just imagine it's in a box, or you put it in a bag and you say, God, I want to give you loneliness. I've processed it as an emotion. It's pointing to the hurt and the pain of losing my best friend. I want to give you that pain. Jesus says, cast all your cares upon him. Don't carry your burdens, for his yoke is easy and his burden is light. Come to me, he says, and I'll show you a better way. So this beautiful exchange process, you say, God, I want to give you my pain. I want to give you my loneliness, this broken feeling I've got right now. God, I'd like to give it to you. And here's the power of this process. You then say, God, what beautiful gift would you like to give me in exchange? So there's a transaction going on here. And can God give you things without you releasing anything? Well, of course he can. He's God. But the point is, I don't think it's helpful for you to keep carrying that loneliness, right? And so the point is, if you give it to God and you cast your care upon him, he's big enough to handle it. And don't tell him what to do with it. He can work that out. He's God. But if you say, I want to participate in a beautiful exchange right now, I want to give you this challenge, like a disruption in your life. You have no job. God, I have a need, obviously, to pay my mortgage and feed my family and have a sense of identity. And so I would like to participate in a beautiful exchange right now. And what I'd like to do is give you the lack of identity. I want to give you the need I have for identity from my work. And I want to give you the mortgage payments. And God, I would ask right now, what beautiful exchange, what beautiful gift would you like to give me in exchange? And the Lord's going to begin to speak to you and show you things that you've never seen before. And I don't want to premise it by telling you answers. I want you to go and do the process and learn from God. And the third and final part of the better way, so one was ask God what the emotions are pointing to. Number two, ask God what beautiful gift of his presence he has for you. Number three, the third thing here is to ask God, what can I learn? How can I grow? What can I prune? Who do I need? So this third part is all about you growing through the experience. And what it does is it shifts you away from a victim mindset. I remember, I've had some significant challenges recently. I told you a story once about the house at the lake that we relocated, and I just had tradespeople lying and stealing and just a whole bunch of legal stuff going on. And then it was in the middle of lockdown, so site was shut. It was also in the middle of winter, so the rain was pouring into my house that had no protection. It was pretty easy to feel like a victim in that situation. But what the power of this one does is it helps us not to live in the status of a victim. So God, what can I learn? What would you like to teach me? God, how can I grow? Will you help me to grow? He's the great teacher. He's the great father who disciplines and disciples us. God, how would you like me to grow in this situation? And of course, John 15 teaches us that the Father is the gardener who prunes the branches who are fruitful in order that they would be more fruitful. So Lord, what would you like me to surrender? How can I be pruned? And finally, that question, which I just love, is who do I need? God calls us to community. We often will find healing as part of community, not in isolation. Isolation is the devil's weapon to destroy you. God's gift to you is community of faithful believers. So, as I'm wrapping this up, the last part of that was to make sure you got the question, who do I need? So the three parts there of a better way. And as I close this episode, that there will be a key point that God's got. The fruit of the disruption is something he's prepared for you. And I went through a significant failure in 2008. It's a long time ago, but man, it's just so real to me. It was so vivid. And I remember going to the Lord and saying, Lord, I thought you called me into this business. I thought you called me into this opportunity. I thought that you opened the doors for me to walk through. I thought I was being obedient. Lord, I thought you called me, because there was significant failure, like catastrophe beyond your wildest imagination. And I said, I thought you called me into this, God. And God said, I did. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, can you not see the mess I'm in? And God says, I called you into this, but not for the same reason that you thought I did. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, you thought I called you into this for success, but I called you into this opportunity. And he took me to Deuteronomy chapter 8. He says, I called you into this to teach you that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. I wanted to teach you that, and I'm teaching you that, and I'm leading you through this experience. What's the point, friends? The major disruption I had with catastrophic business failure and public shame and all sorts of other debts and problems and family challenges, there was a disruption. But there was a beautiful fruit in it, and the fruit that came out of it was the Lord leading me and teaching me as a son in order to a higher way, a better way, and a pathway that only He could see, because I couldn't see it. So there is fruit in disruption. And whatever you're going through, I pray that the grace of God would be upon you to sustain you and to help you to stay connected with Him so that you can see what He has prepared for you. Friends, disruption can be a fruit if you walk through it with God. So wherever you are, thanks for being with me. Don't forget to subscribe, share, do all the usual stuff. Come on, let's get this out there to encourage other people. Faith made real. Come on. And I look forward to catching up with you soon where we can enjoy another coffee together. But until then, God bless and take care.